Go time? Okay, gonna go ahead and call this meeting to order. If I could ask everybody, please stand for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Chris Buckman.
Here.
Brandon Earl.
Here.
Andrea Kreifels.
Here.
Jason Newberry.
Here.
Deanna Garver.
Here.
Tom Henning.
Here.
Pat Zika.
Here.
Next thing we have is the adoption of the agenda.
Make a motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
I'll second. Got a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same. Recognition of patrons and staff. Gonna go ahead and call this meeting to order. All right. It's working.
We're live.
Nobody this evening. Okay, moving on to our first discussion item, which is the WHS baseball trip.
Yes, Ryan is Jenkins, head baseball coach at high school, is here to talk about trip, possible trip coming up.
Thank you.
I needed to find your red.
It's really light, isn't it?
Orange.
Almost a neon. I agree. All right, so there's two items on there. The first one is our spring break trip, which we took last year. We're hoping to do again this year. It would be, I kind of put an itinerary. The itinerary is, I would say, 80% updated. What was not been updated would still be from what we did last year. It's kind of a work in progress as we go, but it's pretty close to being based on once we get approval, nailing down dates to what we're gonna do when we're down there. As far as games go, stuff like that. But we would leave, if approved, Sunday morning on the 12th, come back Friday the 17th. That's what we did last year. And it went really, really well. Last year was a little interesting because it was the end of the lockout for Major League Baseball, so we only got to see one game. This year we get to see more, plus the World Baseball Classic. USA and Canada play on Tuesday night when we'd be in Phoenix. So it'd be an amazing experience. Doesn't happen very often, so definitely something our guys would not have done before. But that kind of gives you an idea of what it would be like when we're down there. Is there questions kind of about the itinerary or about the trip?
How many coaches go or how many adults?
3.
Three. And how many kids? Is it JV? Is it everybody?
No, just varsity. So
How
last
is
year
that?
we took 20, so then it'd be 23 of us total. And we do some stuff. There's alumni down there. Oh gosh, I probably should have wrote down. It's Cope Henry's aunt and uncle. His uncle is from Wellington, his aunt is from Oxford, and they took us in one night, fed us. Their son goes to Basha High School in Chandler. And then Gavin Pickering, who coached with us last year, his dad was down there. He lives down there, so he bought us dinner one night, fed us one night. So there's kind of a decent amount of, not a lot of connections, but there's some connections when we get down there with alumni and people that are close to Wellington.
Who pays for it?
We do out of our account. So last year, everything was paid for out of our fundraisers, minus we took school vehicles and then gas for the school vehicles. I know talking this year, it sounds like it may not be gas and just the vehicles, but we just pay for gas out of our account, which they do a pretty good job fundraising, so pretty good amount, do a lot for it.
What's the cutoff for you to get tickets to the game? Like, when do you need to know to buy tickets to get into a game?
Probably as soon as possible. I started putting all this together. They started calling me in August.
Okay.
As soon as the season ended, I guess it'll probably be beginning of September then. Because I've since talking to the major league clubs last year, those same people reach out again.
Okay.
So like the Cubs lady called and began of September, and the Angels as well.
Okay.
So Ryan, this is down as a discussion item, so if we don't take action on it tonight, it would be revisited next board meeting, which would be next month. Is that soon enough?
It'd be better to make a decision tonight if possible, mainly for the house. So I started putting this together in August. And our first house that we put together and priced has already gone. It's no longer available. The second one is still available, and I checked this morning. I just don't, for the size of group that we have, to find a reasonably priced house is very difficult to do. That would be my only rush on it, if you will. The tickets, I'm sure we'll get tickets. We sit in the grass, like you sit in the grass on the hill, so we either get as cheap as possible. It's more just the experience to get them to watch.
I'm just curious, your team workout, that one, your practice, do you have a professional player? I mean, do you have somebody else there? I mean, are they
So
helping you, teaching you, training you?
yeah, so we last year we practiced at South Mountain Community College. Tyler Gillum, who was the assistant coach there, and he's the head coach of Savannah Bananas. If you guys watching that stuff, he worked out and worked our team out while we were down there. He's the one that opened the field and came and practiced with us. But we load up the trailer. We put all of our stuff in the trailer, so we can practice anywhere really when we're down there. It was still on the kind of the end of COVID last year, and some of the high schools were pretty skeptical about using our facilities because we wanted to also get in the weight room when we were down there. And they were pretty skeptical still because of the COVID stuff. So that would be, I've reached out to some of them and said, hey, this is kind of what we're looking at. They seem to be more open to it this year than they were a year ago. But as far as practice, we'll probably go back to South Mountain.
It doesn't really look like you're asking for anything that we approved this last year. It doesn't look like anything's really deviated from that. So
Yeah,
I'll go ahead and make a motion that we approve the out-of-town travel trip for the baseball team to Arizona over spring break.
I'll second it.
Got a motion and a second, so all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same. Okay, have fun.
Thank you, guys. The other thing on our agenda is a scoreboard. Well, I put a picture of the manual to the scoreboard that has the model number, sizes, things like that on the back. Cali College is offering to donate their scoreboard to us to put up at 9th Street. It's a lot bigger than the one we have. Plus we had some issues with it, electrical issues with it last year, the 9th Street scoreboard. Nothing that we didn't fix, but I think part of it's just wear and tear over time of having it for a while. I think they put that up when they built 9th Street. I don't know exactly what year that was, but so Cali offered we were their first call. Coach Burrows called and asked if we wanted it. They're gonna take theirs down and put a new one up. We would just be responsible for getting it here. And then we would have to put at least one new pole in the ground and the cement that goes with that, just because it's bigger than the old one. But between security, impact, and make commerce, they'll pay for everything we need to do with that. They also would like to, if the banner, I don't know if you would call it a banner, but the sign that goes above the scoreboard down there right now is not very, fits that scoreboard, so it looks small. They talked about wanting to put a bigger banner up there as well. But talking to them, they're for paying for that, so there wouldn't be any cost for us.
Any discussion on that?
I'll make a motion that we allow the donation of a scoreboard from Cal College for the 9th Street field for the Wellington baseball team.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same. Okay.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Ryan.
Adam.
Well, that knocked the first two things off the discussion, so now moving on to number 3, which is an Narcan policy.
Yes, Holly came to you and Officer Wiley last month to discuss the possibility of having Narcan in schools, and so she's back this evening. Has a couple questions for you, just trying to shore some things up. And the board didn't have a lot of discussion on this last time, just a little bit, so just any board discussion that's available as well.
So mostly just answer any questions if you had any more questions. And then we had discussed getting new boxes to put the AED and the Narcan in. So one question we had for you guys, depending on what you want, so if we get these boxes, which I reached back out to the casino, I had sent them a letter requesting some funding. I have not heard back from them yet. So I'm not sure whether we'll get that or not. They were taking it to their board, on the 8th, but I haven't heard back. So, I'm not sure on that. As soon as I hear something, I can let you know. But one of the questions was, if we get those new boxes to put that in, we can either keep those where they are and put the AEDs with the Narcan, and most of them, in most of our schools, they're outside of the gyms. Which in that case leaves pretty easy access to anybody that would need those, which is good and bad. Obviously, in an emergency, it's good that somebody can get that. They do have alarms on them, so if you open the door, there's an alarm. People would hear that. However, if it's at a basketball game, like a rec basketball game or something like that, I wouldn't necessarily be aware that it was used. Obviously, we check those, and so we know that it's taken, but it may not be immediately. So there's that slight concern. Another thing we could do is we could move those, use the boxes still, but move them to where they're outside the nurse's office, just be a little bit less obvious location. The other thing is we could not put them in a box, but have them in the nurse's office. The problem with that is they're locked up after hours, but during school hours, they would be open and accessible. So those are kind of some options that we've thought about. You know, there's pros and cons to all of that. And just kind of some things to think about. You know, it's nice to have them outside the gym and have them easily accessible. Other than, like I said, you know, my biggest concern would probably be like with rec games and stuff like that, where it's not necessarily our staff that's there and available.
Is there amount of time you have to get that Narcan in the system?
There's not like a set amount of time, but it's a pretty immediate thing. You know,
It's immediate.
you as soon as possible.
That's what I was thinking about, where you would place them.
Right, and so, you know, obviously depending on where somebody goes down,
Right.
you can't predict that. So that the nice thing is, if it's wherever it is, you want it to be easily accessible. So if it's in the nurse's office, I mean, wherever it is, we would tell staff that's
Right.
where it is.
Thoughts, discussion?
So like at elementary schools, did you say they'll be there too?
Yes.
Yeah, so where would you put in there?
So it's the same thing. So currently they're in, or the thought was to get a new AED box and put them in the AED box, and they're out kind of by the gyms
Yeah,
for the
okay.
most part.
I just wanted to make sure I didn't quite.
Yeah, in the
I thought
commons
that's what you
areas.
said, the AED things. but-
Yeah.
How big are the boxes?
Like that would house the AEDs.
What would it look like you put it in the E AED?
Right, so the new boxes that I would like to get are just slightly bigger than what we have. They would hold your AED, and then you also
Okay.
have kind of a compartment. And the ones I actually looked at can hold like Narcan and can also hold like EpiPens and stuff. So in the future, if we were to allow
Mhm.
for that too, they can hold all of that stuff. And then you put like, I don't know, you don't notice them unless you're looking for them, but like our AED boxes have a sign above them that says AED.
Like right
We
there?
have one in here.
Well, and this one doesn't, but like
Oh.
at the school, they have like the AED sign.
Yeah, nobody ever bothers those.
They
So-
don't. And so presumably,
Yeah,
people wouldn't bother.
right.
Yeah.
And we're not gonna make a.
Right.
Announcement that we're in there.
Right. And it's not necessarily a drug that somebody just wants.
Yeah,
So it's something that hopefully people would only get in an emergency. So I wouldn't think that would be an issue, but
to me, that seems like the
just something
most
to think about.
useful place that we should put it, but that's just what I think.
It doesn't do anything opposite for something that doesn't need it. So if a
No.
kid gets a hold
It's
of it,
benign.
Yeah, if you don't need it, there's essentially no side effects.
Yeah, I agree with Pat. I think, you know, we're doing this for a reason. Hopefully it's never needed, but if it is, I don't want it to be down the hall and around the corner and through the classroom, so I
And
want it to be available.
right, and my thought on that, quite honestly, if there's a rec game and somebody needs it, I would be fine with somebody
Exactly.
grabbing it and using it, you know, if they're using it for the right purposes.
Adam, I
Then
mean, we've spent a lot of money over the years on camera systems. Surely we got a camera that's somewhat, located near one of these that, if there was an issue like that, a vandalism issue or whatever the case may be, surely we could pull up some footage. It's after the fact, I understand that, but at least it might keep honest people honest.
Sure. And we can check those and make sure they're not in any dead spots. We've added cameras over the years when we've had incidents in dead spots and that hasn't come up, but
Okay.
we can definitely check.
And as far as you knowing whether it's been used, could you put a note in with it that says, please notify Holly that this has been used?
Absolutely, yeah, we'll add the policy and with that, we'll include that on, it's on the policy, but we'll also include something right on the thing on there.
I guess
So-
on
Go
the,
ahead.
sorry, Tom, on the alarms,
That's
I kinda like that idea, but what's gonna happen in a wreck situation? I mean, is the alarm gonna be going off for 12 hours till somebody shows up and,
So the alarm goes off when you pull the door automatically.
okay,
And then usually they call somebody, like admin or somebody in the office has a key to shut them off.
Okay,
Custodian would be there for me.
that's what I was kinda curious too, how long the alarm lasted, like,
Somebody in the office has a key too, or I have a key and Kaylee has a key. And then, so the other question on that, my thought was to train all of our staff. Because like I had said before, you can go, honestly, just go get it over the counter. But we were gonna train the staff, so unless you have a problem with that and would rather us just train a certain amount of staff or certain staff, my plan was to train all of our staff, and to do that, like I had told you, we can do a video on safe schools and then go into an in-service or something and do some just a little bit of hands-on training with that. So that is the plan, unless you have different thoughts on that.
I'm always all about all of the training, so train everybody.
Yeah.
I feel
Does
like,
everybody know how to use those things, AEDs? Cause I
So,
don't think that, people I've asked, there's some people that ask about it, cause I just don't think everybody, maybe that'd be a good time to train
they're
them
pretty well
too.
voice prompt.
well, and there's
But-
kind of two parts to that, so not necessarily, because not everybody is CPR certified. So we do some CPR, but we don't, not everybody as an employee is CPR certified. So yes and no, I mean,
Yeah.
an AED walks you through exactly what to do, but they're not maybe
I would be
officially
panicking,
trained.
I wouldn't.
Yeah.
Is there any reason, this has been for years, we've never trained the whole staff.
Right.
And I know we've always wondered, why don't we get training? Somebody in your class, why don't we train everyone? You probably don't know that, cause it's been forever.
Do you mean
All the
students
staff,
or staff?
all the
All the
staff,
staff.
yeah,
Well,
before it's been,
I mean, I don't have a specific answer for
No, I
you,
know
but
you wouldn't,
that
because it's
would
been
be,
from,
it's a lot. I mean, we, right now, in order to train, to do a certification, the cost in trying to get people through the classes, like right now, just trying to get all the coaches through, cause my goal when I set up a class, cause I'm no longer certified coach, I used to be, but I'm not anymore, so we try and we have to get coaches, all coaches have to be staff. So I also try to make sure that our secretaries, our admin, and our PE teachers are all certified. That way, we are ensured that we have somebody in the buildings that we can easily find certified at all times.
You're talking about CPR now, right?
Yeah, sorry, we flipped.
that's my fault.
So that's my goal, is that we at least have, so I alternate years and I try to make sure that those key people are always certified. Then, when I have a class, if I have openings, then I'll rotate other people too. Also our functional people, we try to keep them certified too, just because those are kind of the ones that are probably gonna need it the most. So I try to keep those guys certified and then fill in the classes when we can.
So in elementary school, it would just be the secretary that's trained, just say it's PE. at the
Secretary,
building,
principal, and PE.
So that,
Then
PE teacher
those
might
aren't
not be
the
there.
only one trained, those are the ones I try to make
Yeah.
sure I get trained and then fill in. And now some people go get training on their own, some people are still trained in the ones. Those, just when I only have a few classes, schedule a few classes, those are just the ones I try to
how
make
many
sure.
can you train at a time?
So most classes, depending on who I can get to teach it, 12 is kind of the max. Sometimes they'll let me sneak in a couple extras. But when you consider our coaching staff and where they're teaching at, we have teachers in each building that are certified too. And we have a spreadsheet. Ellie and I both have spreadsheets of like who's certified. And on mine, it says like where they teach at. So I know like in each building where they're at too.
So,
And yes, it'd be,
I just know
it'd be
it's-
spectacular, honestly, to have everybody
It's just funny, I'm trying to laugh at it.
certified. I agree,
We
that'd
would
be
always
great.
say, all our little people here are certified, and we've got somebody choking clear down at the end of the hall, and we're like, okay, we start yelling, we got this kid choking, and we're like, who do.
Yeah.
So we never could figure out why we all wouldn't be trained.
It'd be awesome.
Is it the expense thing? I mean, is it finding people to do it, or is it the cost of it?
Probably all the above.
so on the Narcan, where we at on that?
Do we need a motion? I'm
So
assuming?
technically, it's a discussion item, so we don't really need to do action tonight, but if the board's
Say
comfortable with that,
If
then
we just tabled it, what would be different next month, I guess?
that's my point.
I would bring back the policy,
Right.
as written, if you're comfortable with the policy for approval, essentially. So,
I make a motion that we approve the Narcan administration by school personnel policy and get this stuff in the school.
I'll second.
That would be the same policy that we reviewed last board meeting,
Yep, it should be.
Say, I have a
attached
copy
to
if you
just
need
for
it.
clarification. Okay, so got a motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same. Okay. Awesome. Thanks, Holly.
Yeah.
Thanks, Al.
Number 4, WHS land request.
Yes, okay. So I sent you an updated email today. First Security got back with me today and sent me all the old paperwork from 2001, the contracts and everything. I forwarded that on to you in your email. And then it should be linked there as well. So essentially, the district, there were 2 different pieces of property that were purchased in 2001. And the specific one that we are talking about here was by the trust that I talked to you about last week. And so essentially, I believe that Mr. Meredith then donated the money, is the understanding from talking to the family, in order to cover that. So that's why his name is not on any specific documentation, because he did not own the land, but he did pay for it. So that solves the final mystery of all of that stuff that we have been talking about. And so really what it comes down to now is direction from the board on whether we are looking at selling, whether we're looking at leasing, whether we're not looking at doing anything, and leading me in that next direction so that I can get information on either stopping this process or moving forward to finding out what that piece of property might be worth, et cetera, so I can continue to head down that path with the board. So that's essential a discussion at this point.
Mike, I just start when I would like to see us sell it. If my biggest concern was the highway, kids coming off the highway, but if they think it's okay and safe and they allow it, then I'd be okay with that.
Straight up, yeah.
I'd still be a fan of leasing it. I don't wanna let go of control of what goes in there in case Scooters doesn't end up there, pulls out for whatever reason. I think we want control of that property.
Okay.
And I think we can come up with a way to take all the profits from that and put it directly in 353 students somehow.
So you're talking about like the payment of the lease?
Yes.
Okay.
Any profits from that, figure out how to directly put that in graduating seniors or
Yeah, decide how we
scholarships
wanna
or.
earmark that towards something.
I agree with the lease idea. My question is, what is that gonna do to our property tax? Are we gonna be liable for property tax on that piece then, because we're changing the use of it? And then what about when they build, sewer hookup, water line? I wanna make sure they pay for all of that jazz.
I'm in favor of leasing. I think it's a good idea.
You can see what's worthless and they says that it's worth.
Chris? Got a preference one way or the other? Preference.
I'd like to lease it, and I want to make it as much about the students as possible.
I agree.
Alright. So I will look in, sounds like most of you, or the consensus is leasing with some questions in there, so
Because
I will go down
They
the
say all the money goes to students.
I'll go down the road of getting leasing information, and that will be our next discussion. I have talked to the realtors, and I've kept them up to date on this whole process, and they're being patient and okay with how the process has gone so far. So, and like we talked about in the planning session, there are a lot of variables. Pat just mentioned KDOT. We talked about different things that may cause some problems, and so anyway, so I will get leasing information, and that'll be the next step to get that to you guys.
Awesome. Next item for discussion is athletic facility survey.
Yes, so met with Shelley, appreciated all her work at the last planning session, and got it whittled down to what is presented to you in your packet. And so looking to continue the discussion with that survey as is, seeing whether that reflected the conversation you had with her, and any adjustments that need to be made further.
Thoughts?
And at this time, the survey's only gonna be emailed, right?
That's what we talked about.
That's what I talked about, yeah.
And how's it emailed out? Or I thought, yeah, how's it emailed out to everybody? And who's it emailed out to?
She said to essentially the taxpayers.
Voters.
Yeah, the voters of the community. That's how she said it.
Not the county.
No, I think it was.
I think they were looking 353 district.
353. Yeah.
Okay.
That was my understanding. Is the city.
That was the talk anyway.
So the survey will be sent via email? Everybody have an email?
Or electronically anyway. I think she talked about having a link on the website.
I thought it was, yeah, I thought it was just a link on the webpage or something.
Thought it was kind of up to us to figure out how we wanted to distribute it, and then they would have to have a valid email to take the survey.
Right. We were leaning the electronic option just because there's no cost to do the electronic option, to start gathering some information and then we can adjust from there.
Everybody get an idea of how many voters we're gonna be sending that to.
I don't know. I mean, do we have
Yeah, it would be
election?
electronic because we don't have everybody's email. That's
So it wouldn't be electronic?
it would be an electronic survey, but it would not be emailed out.
Okay.
We would have to point people. We would have to advertise it and point it towards a certain direction.
So how do you do
Sorry, I
that?
misspoke there. We would have Russ advertise it on Facebook, on the website, we'd get it out to all the media. And then we'd have to get with, Shelley had talked about having a list of voters in the community and pulling all that together, so. I don't know if anybody remembers anything else from that conversation.
So it's up to us to get the information out there to go to the website.
Unless you have a better idea. I mean, we're all open.
No,
That's why
I
we're talking.
I don't wanna spend any money doing it. I don't wanna send
Yeah.
postage, I don't wanna
No,
do
that's
that.
good.
I don't wanna do the survey, just for the record. Well, I think our webpage is really hard to navigate. And I've heard comments that I have a hard time navigating it. It's one of the biggest problems with everything these days, getting people to know about it. So I just don't know how we're really gonna get that many people, a good sampling or whatever you
Well,
would.
you put it on the, I mean, we can use the Facebook page, we can put it to the media outlets, I mean.
I know, but
It's up to-
I'm a member of the Facebook page, but I never see it, it never pops up on my Facebook. If I wanna see it, I have to go to it. So, we can say we can put it on there, we can, that's great, we can put it on the news cow, we can put it in the daily news. But if we're just directing people there like everything else, I think it's gonna be hard, I think that's gonna be hard to do. I mean, people die and you don't even know about it because you didn't see it.
I agree. I don't think it's perfect, but I think it's a attempt to try to gather some information. I think if we put a link on our front page or our website, I mean, if it's on the front page, I mean, it's a click away. If they wanna come up with an excuse for not taking the survey, they can come up with an excuse, but if we put it right in front of them, then so
We
be
can
it.
put the link also on Facebook and on
Right.
all those
Right.
things. So
People
they can
directly to it.
directly get to it.
And on the website, you make sure that that's the first thing that pops up when somebody goes to the website. It will pop up.
Does anybody else think it's hard to navigate?
I agree, I'm not a huge fan of the webpage, but if we put it on the front page,
Yeah, I know, I just was curious.
that's a whole nother discussion.
It's always hard, it's never the same, it seems like, when you go to the page.
Well, everybody's been talking about the cost. I was under the impression at some point he said that there was not gonna be a cost for the survey. Did
There
I
is no
misunderstand?
cost for the survey.
Well,
I
she was, no, she was talking about it last week. She was saying, you know, if this part would be free, but if, so I'm like, I didn't ask anything
Okay,
to
so
her, so I'm like, well, I don't know if she knows everything that he is.
I think I think I remembered Brett saying that they would assist with the cost of a mail out survey. I thought he'd said that, but I don't wanna, I don't remember if that was in a board meeting or
I remember
facilities.
somebody asking if there was gonna be a cost, and he looked at one of you guys and was like, for you, it'll be free, and I didn't know if he
Yeah.
was
That was the cost of
joking.
the survey, but as far as the mailing out, I can't remember if
Okay.
he's,
We pay for the postage.
I
Okay,
thought, but I thought he also said they would help on that, maybe.
Okay,
But I don't wanna say that for sure, cause I don't remember.
so
But no,
just them building the
I
survey.
think what I'm understanding is I think
Okay.
her services are usually billable services that DCS is waiving the cost of that for us.
Their goal is to get involved with eventual
Okay.
actual
Construction.
construction. That's their goal, so. So Shelley obviously said that, she's had a lot of experience with this, and so we would follow, her guidance on how she's gotten 30% or however much she said, as far as, people participating in this, so.
Yeah.
We would be using her guidance as well, so,
I
but she
have
did say
no
just
questions.
electronically.
This could never happen until our bond drops off, whatever we have now is done. You know what I'm saying? I don't know
Yeah.
what I'm saying.
Yeah.
The bond or whatever we have now has to expire. Well, so how many years is that?
That's the best opportunity at that time.
For a bond
to-
issue,
for
so how
a-
many
yeah,
years is
for a
that
bond
down
issue.
the road?
It is 26, 27 time range, 26, 27 school
23,
year,
24,
right in
25,
there.
26, 27, so you're talking 5 years before we would do anything
Do a bond issue.
for all of these projects, if that's the way we decide to go. So I just think it needs to be known that that's gonna be at least 8 years before we get locker rooms at our facilities. Anybody seeing that correct, or?
Yeah, we
So
all
5
understand that, but we also understand can't pay for this, Pat.
No, we
How-
can.
We can pay for it, then let's pay for it, let's do it, how are we gonna do it?
I didn't say I could sit down with you and write a check, but when I was involved in the part that I shared,
Uh-huh.
there was a good consensus that it could be done with school money, this is if the city was gonna go in it, city money, with volunteers, with people doing the dirt work, with people helping with this. There was, and this was in the very beginning, so other outlets hadn't even been looked at yet, naming, we talked about naming, maybe GEC or whatever they're called nowadays, maybe we would have someone that would want to donate X amount.
That would change the game. Hands down.
I know, so we
Hands down.
cannot say we can't pay for this. We know we can't do any of these things other than locker room without a bond issue, because you're talking millions and millions. A locker room is not millions and millions.
How much is it?
You could probably do, I don't know if it cost $1 million or not.
Do we have $1 million?
Are you deaf? Excuse me, but I just shared all the things that we ran across.
You said that was back then, is that now, is that still
Yes,
the
it
same
is
right now?
now.
So you're saying that
Yes.
right now we could have this done with no money because everybody's gonna donate to this?
Yeah.
Okay,
So.
so
I-
hypothetically, if that fails, if we're gonna try to do a bond issue, we need to be working on it now.
Okay, but I think our goal, our plan, and I've said this over and over, which I don't know why it's not resonating, or why it ever was not resonated with the facilities committee, has been locker rooms. On my own, I went and I've spoken with the coach, the football coach, which he was glad because he's heard the rumblings of all this, and he's been concerned that we don't have the facility. And he was appreciative that I reached out to him, to get his feeling, to see what he hears from other coaches, what he you know, how he feels himself about, you know, sorry guys, we have to go over here across the fence and around the corner to talk. And he would like to see locker rooms as quick as possible. He likes, anyway, that's what, I don't wanna put words out there.
When Colby was involved in it, you had the paperwork and the plans. Wasn't there a dollar amount, wasn't it like 475,000
Yeah,
for the
at that
steel
time.
building at
Yes,
the
it
time?
was.
That's what the steel
So,
building was. But
Does he
also-
still have contact with that?
Yeah, it also does,
company.
it also says that wasn't the total.
Right,
The lockers themselves weren't included, but we don't, you know, we don't need thousands of lockers.
so maybe we can get in touch with Colby.
So
So we could get
see.
some dollar amounts.
I was involved with that also when
Mhm.
it came about years ago, and the issue was the funding was not there.
Right.
There was not local funding coming in like they thought there was going to be as far as donations and stuff like that, and that's why it didn't progress. Is because there wasn't the industries that were pumping the money into it.
No, I was just trying to
Say.
figure out what the total would
Right.
be, and
So
then
that's
we could
why
come
it
up
slowed
and
down.
see if it's feasible or not, if people wanna get it, if they don't wanna get it,
Agreed.
you know?
But this piece of it that's on our discussion tonight is reference to survey. Do we wanna get information, or do we not wanna get information? That's the bottom line in my book.
So
I would
can-
like to
can I-
get the, oh, go ahead.
Sorry, no, I didn't mean to interrupt.
I would like to get the information to see, you know, is it, does the community just want the locker rooms or do they want everything? Cause then that would give us a good direction too. I know you're not for the survey, but that would really tell us something on what they're actually wanting us to do. Because if they just
Yeah.
want locker rooms, then that's what we will pursue.
I just think, the survey doesn't share the information that it's gonna be, you know, 8 years down the road. You know, the huge timeframe's gonna pass before.
But I think you're misunderstanding. The whole process of this entire thing is to try to get something to get out to the community. That is the entire district goal, is to get it out to the community. When we started this process, we brought DCS in, and Brett was up here, he was talking, and that turned into these two different sites within the discussion. So we had this, and then that turned into the survey because we wanted to concentrate on one or the other. And so therefore, that's where we're at. If the board chooses to go in a different direction and just concentrate on something that's in the parking lot by the tennis courts or whatever, anything like that, any of those are options, and that does change the dollar amount. When I talk about a bond issue, I'm talking about anything that has been presented up
Right,
here
me
so
too.
far
Yeah,
is
exactly.
absolutely has to be a bond issue. There's no way. If there's something else that comes out of this that is different than that ends up being just a locker room or something like that, and that's what the board ends up choosing to put out there to the community, then that may change things. But nobody's going to donate anything unless we work together and get something out there that says when finances are available, this is what we would like to do as a board. And then you may have somebody donate. You may have somebody who wants to put all those things together. But we need to get that together. The only thing that we have had so far are $5 million projects, which are going to be a bond issue. So that changes that discussion if it turns into something
I'm not
else.
misunderstanding, because that is what I think, that's what I know, other than.
But I don't need to get the information out that it's gonna be 8 years down the road until we have something out there that says this is what we'd like to do. And then once that happens, then we can discuss finances, and we can discuss whether we have something we can put into it now, whether we have something that somebody's going to donate, all those things. It depends on the dollar amount and whatever happens. So I
So-
wasn't,
Putting the survey out there, and if it comes back and says, hey, the community wants us to stay at Sellers Park, why would we spend 425 or however much money now if we can have something a little bit nicer?
But you can't. There's nowhere to put locker rooms other than outside of the stadium. Unless you go with that huge amount of expense and put 3 buildings, like he said, what's his name said.
Well, I think one of the questions, if you want locker rooms only. That's one of the
Now, it
questions.
says providing locker rooms at or closer to the football stadium,
So if they-
so the wording should be different. Do you just want locker rooms at the football stadium? Do you strongly support that or don't you?
So if they,
But when he got involved in our little committee here, it got blown up because the goal for the last 8 years, 7, because nobody talked about it at first, was locker rooms. That's been the goal. The goal was never, it says nowhere in our goals to blow up everything and make this magic.
I don't think we're blowing up everything. I think if you look at the whole project, you know, it's not just the locker rooms left in stock. Our field's left in stock because the cup in it. So we have to get that dirt work, and then if we want to be up with everyone else, that's gonna be the turf.
No, we don't have to sit with everybody else with turf.
But we all agree we need locker rooms, so we need this first start.
Okay, so what, we
Get
need,
the survey out so we can see if that's what
Do
everyone
away with the
wants.
rock
but
parking lot.
then why do we make goals? Why do we have our goals? Cause that has been a goal, and at first it was gonna be reached in 5 years. Well, then it was still gonna be, I mean, the 5 years kept going and going and going, and here we
So
are.
Pat, we're all trying to work towards
We're
this
trying to get
goal. This is the idea of what we're working
No.
on. And you keep trying to shoot it down saying, oh, we can't do this. This is our goal. Pat, we're trying to get locker rooms. What do we need to do to move forward? What do you want us to do?
Punt the thing and just do locker rooms.
With what money?
You can come up,
You said that 7 years
I'll
ago.
get you the money, okay?
Okay.
I will get you the money.
Why didn't you get it when you first discussed it?
You know what, I don't know, because there were a lot of people that were gonna be involved in it, and I still
Okay.
believe those people would, Tom.
So the item that is on the agenda is the survey. We're gonna do the survey or we're not gonna do the survey?
I do want to go forward with the survey, but I don't remember question 4 being worded like it's worded.
Question 4.
Which statement best describes the beliefs about the current condition of the high school locker room facilities in USD 353? I mean, we have them at the high school itself, but we don't have them at the football field. That-
Right, it is kind of confusing.
I don't remember that from last month or work
We can't
session.
even understand it, I say, let's just do it, get it out there. We can understand it, you think somebody just click on it and they'll understand it.
Oh, yeah, I have that too.
Anyway, where's the-
Well, I remember the discussion of adding, I don't have sufficient knowledge of the facilities to answer the question.
Yeah,
But that kind of even
Did
makes the
question
question
4
even more convoluted.
did question 4 change?
Well, I think they put
No,
that in there.
that we told her, the only thing we told her to do was to add not sufficient information.
So we let,
We didn't,
question 4 was not question 4. We
it's
were
it's
saying-
question 8, yeah.
Okay. We should probably read the rest of the survey before we send it out.
Okay.
I mean, that question 4, we don't have,
Where's the rest of the board on it?
I wanna fix question 4.
Seeing some head nods, Chris? Wanna clean up that? At
Yeah.
least if not more? Okay,
Yeah, probably more.
Andrea?
Yeah,
that's the only question.
I don't care what you do with it.
Okay. Bring that one back to us, Adam.
Got it, thank you.
Moving on, restructuring.
Yes, Jen? Pull that up, please.
Since we're waiting for her, Adam, have we always just bused the country kids to Eisenhower?
As far as I remember, I don't know, Pat, do you know if something
It's
happened, always
It's always
been?
been, I know.
Okay,
Is there any reason why we couldn't bus them to like say Kennedy to get the classroom sizes
yeah,
down?
there's
I mean,
no-
I just didn't know if there was a policy or something in place that we have to.
Nope, that's a district transportation decision that happened
To
a zillion years ago, so.
Because that would relieve some of that. And I just picked Kennedy because they have.
Yeah.
Eisenhower was built bigger, so
Right.
the idea
To
was.
accommodate.
Is that what it was?
They could
Okay,
accommodate more.
I didn't know, but that's something to look at.
Agreed. So, during the planning session, and I know we already went over this, I'm gonna go over it really briefly, just since we're live streaming for the community tonight. Just to give additional information for people who might not have seen it. And so we'll just go through this really, really briefly, since the board has already seen this, so we don't take up all your time. As you know, the purpose we went down this road in the first place, declining enrollment at the time. I have a question mark next to declining enrollment now because we are, that is, possibly on the way of changing in our community. We will see how that comes out. And then impact on preschool students in the district. And then also making sure that we are taking care of our taxpayer dollars practically. Our current boundaries and where they sit, just to give you a visual before we look at kind of what the grandfathering policy has done over time. So we're at 1443 this year. And just clicking through our schools. As you can see, on each of our buildings, we have a grandfathering policy that's been in place for a long time. And essentially, once you enter an elementary school, you are allowed to stay there. And then also, even if you move out of that elementary school's boundaries, and also staff members are allowed, for convenience sake, as a thank you for working for the district, to bring their students to a particular school. And then also siblings, and we'll try to keep families together, so siblings are also allowed to continue on into that school as well. So what that creates over time, as you will see on each of these slides, we have, in each of these, you will see that it is very heavy, the student population that goes to that school in that particular area, just like Lincoln here. But with all the grandfathering policy that goes on, you end up, we are a 2 mile wide community, literally. And so it's not a big deal in our community for most families to keep students at a certain school and transport them across town. It's not a nuisance for our families. And so you end up with a situation where it is very congested in that area, but there are also grandfathered students across the district. So that just gives you a visual and kind of an idea of what that looks like. Our middle school and high school enrollment this year. And then kind of what has happened over the last 12 years or so on declining enrollment, even though that might pop back up. This is the class size numbers that the board approved when we first started this process. And then this is kind of what's happened since the board made that initial decision. We have, through attrition, we have reduced 5 teaching positions, still trying to maintain our target class sizes. And this is not perfect number. This is based off, if you take those 5 average teaching salaries in our district, then it's $259,000. So that's approximately what we have saved, reducing those class sizes based off of, not class sizes, reducing those positions based off of the class sizes that the board put together. So we have used that money to increase salaries across the district to compete with the market. I bring you those salaries every year when we are discussing salaries for the following school year. And so you are very familiar with how that process works. And then also those of you who are in negotiations, you know how that process works as well. So we've been able to take this money and increase our salaries to try to compete with that market. And then also we are in the process, if we reach a point where we feel like our salaries are in better shape, then we could also look at allocating money towards potential changes in programming once we feel more comfortable with where things are at. Thank you. Okay, this is trying to be vigilant using taxpayer dollars wisely within our, this is where our classrooms are at since those 5 decisions have been made. And I put in red the classes that are above what the board's decision was. As you can see, your your 4 restructured classrooms. You have 3 at Kennedy that have gone down to 1 teacher. And then you have 1 at Lincoln that has gone down to 1 teacher through attrition. So that's your four of your classroom teachers. And then also we restructured a position at the high school along the way. So as you can see, with kindergarten numbers, with the board approving us to try to average in at 15, and then 2nd through 5th grade trying to average in at 18, you can see that a lot of the Eisenhower classrooms continue to still be a tick above that, not majorly above that, but still several in some cases. And then obviously with Kennedy, you have a couple of high class sizes here. You have 2 here, and then this classroom is 6 above. So to give you an idea what happens at the end of the school year, or towards the spring, I will have specific conversations with the principals to make decisions on whether this is a good situation or not. Special education comes into those talks, and also just the general classes. And for instance, you have classes that we end up replacing a teacher, and then you don't know what the enrollment's going to be in the fall. So you take your best stab at it. Here, we chose to go down to 1 classroom, and then we had some enrollment that we weren't expecting. And so that was a decision that we made. And so Joel and I will have to make a decision again for this classroom for next year as to whether that's a good situation or whether that is a situation that needs changed. And then same thing here. On the flip side of that, last year, this particular group of kids, we didn't know what we were getting in for kindergarten, because that's really hard. Kindergarten's the one piece that's really hard to see what your enrollment's going to be. And so we went ahead last year and replaced this position. And unfortunately, we didn't end up needing to, because there was only 6 or 7 kids in each of those classrooms. And so you're just making the best guess as to how we can try to make that work and readjust. So that kind of gives you an idea of where things are at across the district.
Adam, can I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am.
On the, you said the kindergarten, it's hard to know kind of where the enrollment is. Don't we have the kindergarten roundup?
Yes, we have kindergarten roundup, but not everybody shows up to that.
Oh, so that's not mandatory?
Correct. That's
Okay.
to try to get as many names as we possibly can.
Okay.
That's the purpose. One of the things we're going to do next year is we're going to try to track data on our ASQ, which is the survey that they take at Kindergarten Roundup. And when they start to try to get we're going to add that preschool piece onto that questionnaire. And so we can get an idea of the families that do have, kids that are in their family that are in preschool. One of the toughest families, honestly, besides just word of mouth with people in the community, the toughest families to find out are when that oldest child in the family are in preschool. Because you don't have those older siblings in your system to try to figure out, besides word of mouth of talking to people and, hey, do you know this family type stuff. And the preschool enrollment, obviously. So couple things that are pressuring this now that were not pressuring this when we started these discussions. And I think really this is going to get, especially this piece is going to get into policy that we're going to have to adopt next year, which really could essentially be our restructuring piece that we end up coming up with. But in conversations with Sumner County Economic Development, they are saying that they expect to see an increase in our enrollment based off of some things that are happening in the background about possible jobs coming to our community. And so that's something we're going to have to be cautious of. And then also, it's good news, but that's something to be known about. And also, I talked to the board about this a while back. We will have legislative changes that happened that will start in 2020 for the 2024 school year. And that essentially could change our boundaries or even eliminate our boundaries within that legislation, the way it's written right now. If over time the legislation, essentially what happens, the legislation puts that stuff out there, they hear all the feedback, the complaints, that's the whole reason they have it set for 24 and not 23. And so they will probably tackle this again in this legislative session coming up. And so we will see what they do with this to change. But right now, it is a possibility that we may have to have some sort of district transfer system within our district based off of this legislation, where we have open spots that students can try to come into a different school and go to that spot. So we're just gonna have to ride that out and see how that fluctuates. And if it does, then regardless, the board will have to come up with policy for this next year, and this policy may end up being kind of our restructuring thing. And just like Chris just mentioned, some of those strategies about country kids and some of that may come into this policy that may reflect all of that. So gave the board a lot of information. I know you already have this from the planning session, but I did essentially want to go over for the community that this is still in process, and it's just a little bit more complicated than it was at the beginning with some of these new pressures coming in. I really think what the board needs to look to now is we will continue to make good, best we can restructuring decisions as far as class sizing. And I think when we work on this particular policy next year, I think this is really where we can make some official changes as far as how the district is structured elementary wise moving forward, once we get that legislative piece back and can look at it and see what pressures are going to be on us like they are now. Any questions? I know that's a mouthful.
Yeah. What's the class size at the middle school and high school?
They are, I'll let these guys talk, but they are, JJ, you are closer to in the 22 range, aren't you? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think at the middle school, they're a little bit higher. Still trying to work through that. I'll have to, I don't know. Are you crunching numbers?
Trying to. Our numbers should be bigger next year because the class coming in is bigger than the class leaving.
But the eighth grade class now is bigger than the freshman class?
It's bigger
bigger
than the
one
senior
leaving?
class.
Yeah.
So like 30 some students at the moment. So our numbers will be a little bigger.
Ours is about 20, 23, somewhere around there.
It's about one above. So anyway, so we're in there.
Sorry, this keeps creeping out.
Oh, one thing, the other night, I think you asked if the classes that were over, like the kindergarten class that were over, if they were getting any extra help. And Adam, your answer was that we are meeting the IEPs as best we can, as we always do. But that didn't really answer her question because para for an IEP student doesn't do the extra help. They work with the IEP students because they're not supposed to be working with other students or, so to answer her question, it would be, are we having anybody
Like a
else
teacher
come in?
aide.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
a
like a
teacher
teacher-
aide.
teacher's
You
aide.
know, we know we hope we're meeting the IEPs with the paras, but, and that might be a decision, if they're over. But I just wanted to clear that up.
Yeah, you mean some additional staff besides just.
Well, that's what she asked.
Yeah.
That was
okay.
the question.
Well, I must have misunderstood.
That's
you.
okay.
I'm sorry. So, yes, I know what you're saying. Essentially, what our job is to make the classroom successful with, whatever staffing we do. Paras don't have to just work with special education staff, but that's why they're there. That's the whole purpose. And that's what traditionally they mostly do. But, if we have MTSS groups, for instance, and you have special ed students within that group, but there's also regular ed students within that group, then they can work on a MTSS group in that situation. So, but it is all tied back to special education. So, do you have any other questions, Ben?
So right now, because of the legislature, we're not gonna worry about any numbers and basically.
I think we besides one situation where we have 6 above, I think we are just 2 or 3 above in most situations. So I don't think it's an extreme emergency situation. My recommendation to the board right now is we continue to mess with this like we have been, and that we wait, because if we do a lot of changing right now and then this comes out and it changes what we just changed, then that would be kind of pointless. So I think by the end of this school year, after the legislative session, we will have a pretty good idea as to what we need to work on for the fall of '24.
Jen, do we have a copy of this that we can get to your little slide
This
presentation?
slideshow,
Yeah.
I can put it in.
Yeah, if you don't mind,
Sure.
there's some good information there with the class sizes and the. I've been looking for it. I didn't want to ask if it was already in there.
I have a question. So with that one school, the elementary school that had the 6 extra, I think it was,
The Kennedy class.
that they signed up late or whatever it was, could we have not have said, hey, we're kind of full at this school, can we transfer you, could you start at Lincoln or Washington, just to kind of,
If we don't specifically have that set in policy, so you're kind of going against what we've done in the past. But I mean, it's possible. I think it would have opened Pandora's box a little bit
probably.
with some things, but
But if that's your home school, you couldn't, could you? I mean, if I live if I just moved in across the street and I'm making one of those 6 kids, you can tell
No,
me to go
not
somewhere
unless
else.
they
Not if that's
had-
my home school.
right, the way we're setting policy now, yeah, that's what I was saying, yeah.
Okay, any other discussion on that?
Any other,
I do think we need to keep the idea of moving country kids to Kennedy.
Yeah.
As a very simple fix.
essentially what the board needs to think about is what we know will be coming from the legislature is, as of right now, it is in this specific legislation, it is talked about as schools, not districts. So if you have a certain number of classes or a class that has let's say, Washington second grade, just as an example, and whatever class size the board creates in that second grade classroom for the 24 school year, if our enrollment there is lower than that, then we are going to have open spots, and people will be able to, as it's written now, even in district people will be able to request to go into that open spot. When that happens, if let's say we have, let's say the second grade has 14 kids that enroll, the board sets it at 18 kids, so now you have 4 extra spots. And let's say you have 7 families across the district request that classroom. Now we would have to have some sort of lottery system to decide who the 4 kids are that go into those spots. The way the legislation's written now, that's the way it would be. We just don't know what tweaking they would do to that. And the reason I say it blows up our boundaries is because you're not holding people just to those schools anymore. You are having to have open spots across the district that people can apply to go in there. Once they go in there, they have to stay the rest of the time. That's part of the legislation. So that's a big pressure on this whole restructuring thing that we talked about. But at the same time, I want the board to understand that your original decision was a really good one, because we have been able, like you see those 5 positions, we have been able through attrition to do some good things with taxpayer dollars just based off of that decision, while the rest of this stuff gets fixed. When we first started talking about this, we would not, I mean, this is the opposite of what we were talking about. And obviously we wouldn't have known anything about this. And so both of these things are going to pressure. And so my recommendation is that we start working on this piece next year after the legislative session.
Does that new legislation, open enrollment, like Derby has open enrollment, there's schools that have open enrollment, so anybody can go there, start playing whatever they want to. Is that included? Will we be an open enrollment school where anybody can come here, they can play basketball whenever they want to? I mean,
I don't know how Keisha will respond to this. I don't know how that would work, because right now there's pressure from Keisha on those things. There's penalties for going to, from one school to another. They
Such as?
purposefully do that.
What's the penalties?
What is it?
One.
Take a year
So
off.
if it's
Is it
not-
one year set out?
Not
The
anymore,
set
you
out
don't have to
one?
set
If it's
out.
not qualified,
It's 1 year.
Yeah,
It's 1 year of
then
ineligibility.
they could be.
It's changed.
I just mean if they're not in
For varsity sports.
It's
Right.
changed.
Oh, okay.
It has not changed. It changed from 6 months to 1 year, Pat. My kid went through it.
I know, that was a few years ago.
Okay. Alright.
So what is it now? I'm sorry.
What is it now, Pat? You know?
That's why I'm asking.
Well, I'm wrong apparently. I'm trying to tell you.
JJ, do you know?
So if a student leaves us. So for example, we had a student leave us to go to Hutch, moved in with another family member. If it's not deemed by Keisha as a bona fide move, or if the school chooses not to release them to play a varsity sport, then they can't play for that 1 year season. So what happened to your kid is correct.
So on the bus variable that came up,
Yes.
one time talking about transportation contracts, we had that number in front of us at some point in time. As far as how many kids we are actually busing.
It's around 60. It's
Okay,
right in there.
so yeah, if you could get that freshened up as far as how many, I mean, how many kids are we talking about that?
You break down by grade too, would you?
Yeah.
And I can, Heather can get that for
I
us.
know my kids, when they rode the bus, I mean, there's like 3 kids on that bus, so it's really not gonna matter that much, so.
Yeah, no, we can get that. But, any questions about this? I know it's a little bit complicated with some of this new stuff, but, I feel like this will really force the issue to clean up some of this stuff for the system for the district.
How will our policies work? So let's say you said we had 14, but we could have 18. Do we have to fill those 4 spots, or can we keep the policy where
You can keep the policy where it's
So if
on.
we
My
have
understanding
3
now.
foster kids roll in that we have to take, then we're
Then we have
not
to take 'em.
overwhelming the
Need a
classroom.
little buffer.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we may wanna write that into policy. I mean, this will have to be a policy that the board puts together next year.
Okay.
We may
So
want.
so we will have some kind of
Oh, yeah.
okay.
This is not policy that I'm gonna write. We'll have to write it together.
Oh no, I meant like
Yeah.
with legislation, like saying
Oh,
we
yeah.
have we have 18 spots, we have to fill them if we have.
Whatever we advertise to the community, because we have to advertise to the community what our spots are in each spot or each classroom.
Okay.
And then once, as of now, once that is advertised, however many we have enroll in that classroom, we have those, if there's any extra room, then we have to allow access to that school based off of.
Well,
whoever
that's what I
applies.
mean. So if we allowed the 4 kids in the lottery system to fill those spots, and then we have 3 foster kids that roll in, then we're at 21. That's where I was asking,
Yes. And that,
can we?
and that's the
keep
pressure, I think we have to not only take the kids in the lottery system because we advertise that, but I think we also have to take those kids. But if you write into policy that, those kids would be sent to the lowest populated school or something like that, then maybe that's something that we could write into policy that would help a situation like that.
So what if they're living with a family who's in that school, like grandfather,
Right.
we've already got 3 kids, and then you got, how would you do that?
Right, and that's what we have to decide.
So,
Yeah.
if I understand this correctly, it's more about funding. Like, we can take the kids, we just don't get funding from the state for them, correct?
No, if it's past September
Yes.
20th count.
Right,
Yes.
but even the count doesn't affect that. It's like say we have 5 spots available, family of 6 moves in, and we take the kids. Even regardless of the count, the September count, we just don't get funding for those.
As of now, unless that changes, yes. And if anybody comes in later on, then we do not get funding for them, but you're hoping
Right.
they're there for the count the next year.
Right. But I'm talking about the news changes where you advertise we've got 5 spots.
Yeah, but that all takes place in the summer.
Okay,
So it would be there for September 20th anyway.
gotcha. That makes sense.
Unless
Okay.
they left the district for some reason. Yeah. So they have, within this legislation, it literally says the district will advertise this month. The lottery system will take place this month, so it establishes itself towards the late spring and into the summer. Like, I think the lottery system's in June, the way it's written now, maybe, so.
But who knows what's gonna come out of it?
Yeah, I don't know. That's what I'm saying. We need to wait.
We're kinda throwing darts, but we're getting ready.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, getting your brains ready, so.
Okay, good discussion.
Yeah, thank you for all that. I appreciate it.
Next thing is the social emotional conference update.
Okay, this is just to share, several of us went to this conference called Bridging to Resilience in Kansas City. And Jim Sporleader and Rebecca Lewis Pankratz, they have been in our district a few times, and we pretty much know them personally. They've been working with our district to help us to become trauma informed. Matthew Portell was also a speaker at this conference. He was great as well. The conference was amazing. It was a 3-day conference. We took 13 people, and it was totally paid for by a grant, except for, I think, a few meals, maybe, meals, that's it, and some fuel. But they paid for our rooms, they paid for the conference, we had amazing meals at the conference, so it was awesome. So they talked to us about healing a brain thing with a love thing. And we learned about how the brain changes with trauma, and some of the things that happen are difficulty with attention and focus, learning disabilities, low self-esteem, impaired social skills, and sleeping disturbances. So when students come in that have trauma, we have to respond in a certain way to help them to be successful. So building a trauma-informed school is not a program, but it's a culture. So we're trying to learn how to build this culture by providing all students with safety, choice, collaboration, trust, and empowerment. So the primary purpose of a trauma responsive school is to build those brains that can learn by responding in a certain way, and understanding that all behavior is a form of communication. So this was really something that, when you think about it, it totally makes sense, but they explained how punishment is a reactionary response that causes fear and uses pain and loss as payment for an action. So unfortunately, our society is kind of set up to use punishment to learn from mistakes, like getting a traffic ticket. We're punished by getting we're getting punished by getting a ticket or going to jail. It may work for some, but it also can make others even more defiant, especially when they don't understand why they're being punished. But discipline, in contrast to punishment, is a regulated response that promotes consequences designed to reach appropriate behavior and maintain the relationship at the same time. So the core of all of this is having children feel safety and belonging and dignity. And actually back here, so even though we're responding differently, it really works for all children. So you don't need to just pick out kids that you think have had trauma and respond in that way. So expectations should be posted for all kids and explained consistently and enforced. Our CHAMPS training has taught us how important this is, but boundaries are very important when responding to kids of trauma, or any kids for that matter. They still need them, but they need to understand that those boundaries are there to help them to be the best they can be, not as a punishment. For example, let's say a teacher's responding to a kid that's had a hard day, saying today was a hard day and the math assignment didn't get finished. Because math is important and I don't want you to get behind, and I also care about you and want you to be successful in math, I need you to come in after school to finish it up. So it isn't like, you didn't do your work, you get an F. So that's kind of the difference in the response. So a dysregulated adult will never be able to help a dysregulated child or teen. And so it helped our adults to kind of understand it's not usually personal, and it's hard not to take it personal when a child is upset with you or acts out. And if you let yourself get dysregulated, you need to find ways to get re-regulated. So the three cornerstones are safety, belonging, and dignity. So the golden rule, do not re-injure the already injured. So this was this was a good quote too. When kids struggle with reading, we help them. When they struggle with math, we help them. When they struggle with behavior, we put them in the hall. So we want to change that way of thinking. We want to help them. So discipline is helping the child solve a problem. Punishment is making a child suffer for having that problem. And that kind of, it's real quick, but we had a few people here that went, and I think you guys all would agree it was awesome. And if you have anything to add, feel free. But Joel went, Oski went, Audrey went. It was great. And that's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Jen. Any questions from the board on that? Okay. Number 8, BoE officer and committees. You leaving?
Nope.
Oh.
That probably would be a good idea. Yes, just wanted to remind the board that we have in our January meeting annually, there will need to be board officers discussed. That's the president and vice president position. I will not be giving a recommendation on that. That is entirely up to the board. So I just want you to be prepared for that happening. And then also committee assignments. If the board wants to continue with committees next year, then we will line out the committees that we feel like are important. The board can also put input on that, on any committees that you would like to see. And then we will line out, the number of positions that we feel is appropriate, that we would need for those particular things. And so we will put that forth to you in January as well. So it's just a reminder piece is all that is.
Right. Yes.
I'd have something I'd like to say about the committees. My personal feeling, I think I have a problem with 3 people on a committee. It becomes almost impossible if somebody even asks you a question, another board member says, facilities, I can't talk to them about it because that's coma. I mean, we're with three is kind of, it's inconvenient at times because you can't talk about what happened in facilities with another board member. That's just my personal thought. The rest of the board, you want to limit the number of people on a committee. Obviously 3 is the max you can have on a committee to begin with, but I don't know if you wanted to limit those down or leave it as is. I don't care. Just saying that's a little bit of a issue at times.
Well, I was on the policy committee. I think we met once. We're trying to meet again, but that's been a hard time.
We just met
We
on
just
Friday.
met one time.
Well, we had a meeting scheduled on Friday,
Yeah.
this past Friday.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, it's been a whole year, and we met, that'd be the second time that we met.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of scheduling conflicts.
Right, I'm just saying, I don't.
The meetings have been scheduled and had to be canceled
Yeah, several different times, I get that.
several times.
Yeah, not just, I don't think I canceled one, but anyway, it didn't matter. And then the facilities committee, not facilities, what's the other one I want? Restructuring, we just met once.
Twice.
When was this? We met this summer and Jen showed us that. What was the other time?
It's the last policy committee since you guys were both on the same
No, I
one.
mean the restructuring.
The
No, that's what I'm
restructuring.
saying. We did the same. We did this.
Well, we
committees
did
back to
it
back
together.
that day.
We did them together.
And that's when
And
I
that
discussed
policy.
this stuff.
Oh, I thought the last one, I just took that as a policy that we met with Jen and we shared lots of stuff about you had met the day before with the preschool people. And I took that as a policy,
Yeah, and then we went into
Restructuring.
all this stuff.
Yeah. So,
Well, anyway, everybody think about that before next meeting. I kind of agree with Tom. It does create a coma issue. I was going to remind everybody to be cognizant of that as you're talking with other board members as far as their roles that they want to play, that we don't have a coma violation there. So just in conversation, it can happen pretty easily. So just be aware of that. I think the committees are beneficial. I think it helps board decisions. I think it helps bring a different perspective to the board, that a board member can kind of give some additional information that You're absolutely right. We all have busy schedules and we all have scheduling conflicts, and I think that helps at least have some better minds at the table that actually have some more information that can try to help drive that decision. So, and try to get us to the end goal. So, just my 2 cents.
I can just say on behalf of the district, what it helps us out with is it gives us experts in the room that's not just us. And so if you guys are a part of those conversations and those committees, then you come in and, you know, there's at least 2 or 3 of you in the room that are a part of those discussions. So that helps us out.
So I do some thinking about that as far as what you can serve. Okay, moving on. We're gonna get into action items. Facility rental.
Yes, we had several discussions about this. We kind of finalized, I think, there's a reason we moved it to an action item, kind of finalized this at the planning session. And so that is changed and put into your packet for action this evening. So we would move forward with having no cost for teams that are made up of the majority of Wellington students. And unless there was practices scheduled on the weekend, and then we would charge a custodial fee so that we had staff available to work those. And then it would be the $250 a day for any, essentially that's where the discussion ended anyway, $250 a day for as written, and the other piece if there was a team that wanted to show up that was not a Wellington-based team and wanted to use our facilities. It's kind of how the discussion ended, and so that's what is before you on the agreement.
Any discussion on that?
Thank you for changing the form.
You're welcome. You can thank Ellie.
I think it looks great.
It looks great enough to make a motion.
Sure, I'll make a motion that we approve the revised facility rental form as presented in our packet.
I will second that motion.
Got a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same.
Aye.
Thank you.
And moving on to administrative reports.
I just wanted to say that I know I put it in the board report, but I'm extremely proud of my staff. Last week, Kennedy got hit really hard with the illness that's going around, the teachers and students, and a lot of staff members had to be flexible in their position and what they were doing things that they don't normally have to do, just to make sure that all the kids got where they needed to be and got everything. But especially our nurse, Holly Parkey, worked really hard. Our secretary, Karen Harrington, worked really hard, and then our custodian, Lori Hoshivar, bore the brunt of all that sickness. They did all the dirty work on it. So really, really proud of not just those 3, but all of the staff at Kennedy. Things were looking better today already as far as people being gone. So
It's good. There's a lot going around right now. Anybody else have anything they want to share?
If you noticed, the 4 has started Tuesday tutors with her leadership group. She's seeking to reach out to community members who maybe would like to help with that math or English tutoring at the higher level. And she would greatly welcome that help to support some of our students who are struggling in that. So if you know anybody who, I know there's some companies that get some time for volunteering. And so that would be a great help. And then she's doing some really good things there. And then the Future Maker Mobile Lab came to our district, and this Case brought that, and it was really good to see the kids get to experience some of those things that I've seen them experience in other districts, and our kids really liked that, and it's a great thing.
Okay. Have any questions for them?
Any questions from the board?
Next month, can we see like that FAFSA scores, that from the fall into what you just took, just kind of see the growth ourselves? Could you share that with us?
It doesn't close till this Friday,
that's
so
fine.
we're still testing,
But
Yeah, we can demonstrate
January,
growth.
February,
Yeah.
would that be okay? If anybody else wants to see that?
And next
Yep.
month I'll be like KISA data, so that'll be like all the data.
What was the, Sherry, you talked about interim assessments State assessment, what is that?
That is practice assessments for the state assessment.
I thought it was, I hadn't heard that before.
If there's nothing else, we'll move on to executive session.
I make a motion that we go into executive session to include Adam and the administrative team for 10 minutes to discuss legal matters. The regular meeting will resume at 7:35 p.m.
I'll second.
Got a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same. We're in executive session.
Oh, really?
No idea. I don't know what chemical engineers do. Make drugs.
Back,
I don't, yep, now we are.
35. Okay, we're back in open session, no action was taken. And I believe we have another executive session.
Make a motion that we go into executive session, for 10 minutes to discuss non-elected personnel to include Adam Hatfield and the administrative team. The regular meeting will resume at 7:46 PM.
Second.
Got a motion and a second, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed, same.
Yes, we technically could have stayed in here, huh?
They're
killing the cameras.
Yeah, it's probably better, just in case there's an electronic snafu.
We're back in open session, no action was taken, and we'll be moving on to the consent agenda.
Okay, approve the minutes of the November 14th meeting. Approve the payroll and bills. Payroll $1,197,581.65. Bills $737,053.63. Personnel, approve the new hires. Kayla Brownlee, para, Lincoln. Dawn Smith, bus para, the high school. Elisha Bright, lead night custodian at the high school. And Reagan Rashke, para at Kennedy. Approve the resignations. Stephanie Hopper, registrar at the high school. Tyra Wyckoff, para at Lincoln. And Kelsey Owens, para at Lincoln.
I make the motion, we approve the consent agenda provided.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same. Okay. Board member comments. Chris, we'll start down at your end.
Just wish everybody a safe and happy holiday.
I'll do the same. I have much tonight.
I'll do the same, and I'll also, it was a great turnout at the band. What was that, Adam? Taco feed and Christmas music.
Yeah, it's really good.
Oh my goodness, I couldn't believe it. That place was packed. There were a lot of people there. I think they ran out of food. It was a great turnout. So thanks to the community for supporting. That's all I've got.
I wanna say that I'm really excited about the changes at the middle school. The culture is definitely a lot better than it used to be. I liked his comments about, or he does like a teacher spotlight. I'm liking that, and that they're doing their building leadership teams, meetings, and I just see positive changes there, and I have not heard one bad thing.
Good, that's great. Thank you for sharing that.
I don't have anything tonight.
To piggyback on the band, I went to the band concert, the full middle school, high school concert. That was amazing. I even emailed him and told him how good of a job that would be, because I was just floored. He did such a good job with those kids and on those instruments. And then I want to say, back on the policy committee, we did have a meeting on Friday, and we did decide to employ KASB to help us with our book and to get it updated again and to continue that process for us.
So we're not gonna go over step by step, item by item.
Maybe as part of the update, but they're getting us more information and the contract is coming back.
Okay,
So.
well,
Cool.
I didn't get back because I didn't see your email till later, but in the future, I'd appreciate if I don't reply, is it, can you come or not? Cause there was about 6 of them, there's 7 that we were having it, we weren't, we had it, we weren't. I think the whole thing, is done, but I can tell you, I will bring up I'm going to go through that book and bring up every policy that we're not following.
I am too.
Okay.
So just to give some more information on that, if you want me to, because I have it here. The reason we went with that is KSB offers a Policy Plus service, which fits what we need, which is they are going to actually be sending out questionnaires to the board, wanting information on what you specifically want. So the things that have been the problem up to this point that keep getting brought up, where you have a policy and something's not circled within that, and the difference between the book policy and the online policy, which has been another issue. So they have solutions. We don't have the details on that yet, but they have solutions on how we can fix all of that stuff and also include the board and get questionnaires out to everybody to help pull all that together. So they will actually go through and we'll see what the process is. I mean, some of Pat's concerns may come up in the process, I don't know, but they've done this a million times, so we will follow their process. But they will go through the book and they will get it all back together for us. But then once that's together, they will host that online. And so any policy changes go to from Russ to KASB. KSB then makes the changes within that, and that continues to be hosted on our website at all times. So it's always a living, breathing document that's continuous. What's happened here is we've had those changes, and then for whatever reason, this ends up not matching up with this and all this stuff, and so this will take it out of our hands, and it will take it directly from the board table to that live document, and it'll be done at all times. So it'll be a much better process, and we will have some leadership and guidance from them throughout that. So we had made the decision to go with that, and that is a service, and it is.
What's that cost?
It's $3,000 to start up, and then they are going to actually prorate us this year, but the annual cost will be $3,000 to keep that up and going.
Why couldn't we do it ourselves like we planned? Why do we pay KSAB? We already don't trust their lawyers.
Well, we discussed it in committee, and we
I know, but I would appreciate just a heads up that, cause I couldn't come.
Russ sent an email
Russ
on
sent
one
Tuesday.
email, I
Yeah,
know.
he sent a reminder
didn't-
email on
okay,
Tuesday
I didn't
after
get
he
that.
sent
I'll show
an email out to us to make sure
Asking if
that we
would
could,
work.
if that would work, and that would work. And then he sent out a reminder on Tuesday.
Well, I didn't see the reminder, obviously.
So those
Maybe
were
a
all.
phone call or something, if there's two people on the
Those
committee.
were all sent, they're out there,
Okay,
we
well,
can,
I
we
didn't
can
know
schedule
we
the
should pay
meetings, I
$3,000
can't get
for
people
them.
to the meetings.
We don't even trust their attorneys. Some of us don't trust the KSB attorneys, why would we?
This just seems like the best option to get our policy book where it needs to be, the quickest and most effective way. So, to move us forward. Since scheduling is so difficult.
They wrote the whole book in the first place, so. Okay, well, my turn. My reason for voting no on the facility thing was, I tried to call in to say, when we were talking about the fees the other night, but I didn't get in. It just came to my attention, just thinking about, that we're gonna charge somebody that's having a dance recital, with all Wellington kids, $250. And they're all Wellington students, they're all involved in our arts and our things at school. It was more, so I'm thinking, here we have sports, it's okay, and this other thing, it's not okay to waive the
But
fees.
correct
But
me
they
if I'm
can,
wrong,
but they can still
yeah,
come to
they
the
can get
board
a
and get that
waiver.
waived if they want.
Yeah, but I mean, if they pick,
This was to address the repeat
Practices.
practices. This
Right.
wasn't to
I
address the
know that.
one-off.
I mean, but it was to make a policy.
We waive fees all the time for one-off events out there.
The next thing is Eisenhower music teacher did an excellent job after going to 5,000 in a row for 100 years. It was amazing. I mean, people are walking out there very, very happy. The auxiliary gym is still having those pieces fall apart off the wall that were falling apart when it was brand new. I mean, it's kind of like if you don't take care, I don't know how old it is now, but that's been happening since it was brand new. And I always notice them, and I tell my husband, and he's like, oh my God, nobody else is noticing it. But the Meekers the other night said, can you believe that's still happening? And I'm like, yes, I'm not the only crazy one that notices the gyms.
I will check on that. You're talking about the colored
Those-
panels?
Well, the metal piece that's supposed to go into the wall. One's completely down, one's falling down, and if you look, some of them are already out of the little socket thing.
Okay.
And it's been doing that since the first day we opened it. I guess that's it.
Okay. I'll check on that. Thank you for bringing that up.
Thank you, everybody, for being here. We are adjourned.